See, as I'm talking about it, I'm tearing up because that was my dad.
It's painful, right?
Very painful. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mommy's Love Nest. Today, Lynn and I are going to address a topic that is actually very vulnerable for both of us to expose and to discuss. And it is about abandonment and how abandonment issues in our early childhood days have really impacted us as individuals and as parents. So without further ado, let's get right into it. This is going to be a really juicy topic, but at the same time, it brings up a lot of old wounds and scars, and it's definitely a very vulnerable topic that we are for sure taking a courage to dive into. So, Lynn, when did it happen to you? And can you describe a little bit about what happened?
Right. So, hello everyone, and thank you, Cecilia, for the first question about the origin of the fear of abandonment. So, as soon as I was aware that there was a fear of abandonment inside of me, I started tracing it back, and it went way too long until I think I was very small. I think at the age of 5 or 6. So back in time, I spent most of my time with my mom because relationship between mom and dad wasn't so good back then. So dad didn't stay at home much. So basically, there were only me and my mom. And then my mom also, she got to deal with so many things then financially, emotionally. So that's why she tend to outpour all the frustration and anger on me. And there's one thing that she said that's still sticking to my mind until now. And I think that's really the very beginning point of my fear of abandonment. She said, if you don't do it well, I will leave you. Or if you don't study harder, I will leave you. I don't need you. I can have another. Yeah. So it hurt me a lot as a child. Yeah. And so it's and I started living in fear, and I got to study as hard as I can, as well as I can. I got to obey what she said. Otherwise, I will be abandoned by my dear mom, and she's the only one back then because I'm the only child. I don't have siblings, and then I did not have friends as well. And my dad was away, and my relatives also stay far away from us. So, my mom is like the only one that I can rely on. And I was so small, I didn't know how to sustain.
Right.
I didn't know how to live without my mom. So that's why the fear of abandonment was really huge for me. And seeing it started so early, I think that's why it's become like a really big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me. And then sometimes I over identify myself with that. And it has brought a lot of issues to my life. Yeah, so that's my experience. How about you,
Yeah. No, it sounds really scary, I think, when you're only 5 or 6, like you said, you knew that there's nobody else around you that you could depend on. It was just solely your mom. I mean, what if she walks out? Yeah, that is a real fear. For me, fear of abandonment, I think, stemmed from when I was probably around from the ages of 5 to 8 years old. My parents had were going through a very hostile divorce proceeding. It was a very, very broken relationship in that I saw my mom in tears all the time. And I remember that the last time I saw my dad, and at that time I didn't realize it was ever going to be my last time to ever see him or to hear from him, was when I was about 8 years old. It was my last visitation with him because the divorce had been finalized, and that was the last. Supposedly, that was the last visitation of him before my mom and I were going to immigrate to the U.S. And that last visitation again did not end very well with my parents. It was all I remember were shoutings and screaming. See, as I'm talking about it, I'm tearing up because that was my dad.
It's painful, right?
Very painful. And that was the last time that I had the image of my dad. And when we moved to the U.S., my mom said to me, I think our first few days in the U.S., my mom has said to me, we don't talk about that person anymore. She didn't even say, we don't talk about your father anymore. She just said, we don't talk about that person anymore. That's it. And compounded to this, sudden separation from my father, I had also been separated from a long time boyfriend of my mom, who had actually become my father, another father figure to me. And that was it. And I actually didn't see that man for another, I was about 8 around that time. I didn't see him again until I was about 22. Never heard from him. Never got a letter from him. Same thing. I didn't get any of that from my dad. Yeah, it's really painful. 2 very influential men, in my life, to not hear from them. And we just not even know what happened to them. That leaves a huge void in my heart. And I don't think at that point I knew the word or the concept of abandonment. I just remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel this way again. This hurts. And my mom, what added to the hurt was that my mom couldn't help me process all these difficult emotions that I had. She just shut down, and it's almost as if it's like it never happened. Like, we moved to the US and she was just like, okay, life goes on. I'm going to find a job and this is our new life. And she never talked about it again. My relatives around me, I would hear them whispering and saying to each other, oh, no, don't talk about it in front of her. Just don't talk about it. My grandma, who I actually was very, very close to, she also never talked about it. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, this big traumatic event has happened to me, and why is nobody acknowledging
That's
and
right.
helping me to process? And they just rushed me through what was ahead. They're like, well, you're in a new country. You're about to go to a new school. You must learn the new language, the new culture. Get on with it. There's no time to look back.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Yeah. So if I hear you, it was painful even when it happened once, but here it happened twice. So
yeah,
your father and then your mom, long-term boyfriend.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
and
she
then
said, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then you felt painful, but then you did not get any assistance on how to process it. It's like there's a wound, but it's not. It did not get any treatment, so just there.
Was just there, but and it was almost like I felt like I would be a bad child if I bring it up because I remember that my mom was painfully sad during the divorce proceeding. There wasn't a day that I didn't see her in tears.
Mm.
So I was thinking, okay, yeah, if I bring it up, I'm going to bring her to tears. And I don't want to be that person to trigger that in her. So let me keep it inside. Because maybe there's really no place to hear what I have to say because mom is going through such a difficult time.
You're right.
You know, and then also and then my mom had another boyfriend, series of other boyfriends where there were two more after this that also became like a father figure. And again, they just vanished in thin air. And again, up to today, my mom is in her 70s. She still doesn't talk about why it happened. She doesn't talk about it.
She doesn't talk about it.
He doesn't talk about it. And when I try to approach the topic with her, she doesn't want to talk about it. I think the last time, I think she got so fed up with me trying to have a conversation with her about it, she handed me some documents that the divorce court proceedings had. And she's like, you read this.
Oh, you read this.
So it was like, I don't want to talk about it. So if you really want to talk about it, just read this. From what the lawyers and the social worker. So I was also seeing a social worker during the divorce proceeding, because they were interviewing me on like who would I want to stay with, which parent is what I felt was better fit for me. Like she didn't want to talk about it. She's like, here's the divorce proceeding paperwork. You read it, and she just shuts it down. And again, it's like again, I'm in my 40s, and it's like okay. Here I am trying to have a civilized conversation with my mom, and she's shutting it down again. And it's like being hurt again.
Yeah. It's like it's triggered the 01 again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel you. I feel your pain.
Thank you. But but as an adult, and because, we do mindfulness now, I think it helps us to cope with that a little bit easier.
That's right. Yeah. I'm so thankful for mindfulness practices a lot because really, at least it helped me to realize that many of my issues with relationship with myself and relationship with others when I became an adult actually is rooted in my fear of abandonment happening when I was a child.
Yeah.
So this awareness is really a stepping stone in my healing journey.
So how did it affect your relationship? Like before you realized there was this stepping stone and you became awakened to, oh, because of my fear of abandonment, it's impacted me in this way with others. How did, this fear of abandonment impact you in your relationship with others?
Yeah. I didn't dare to stay true to myself in relationship with others because, I felt like they would not accept me for who I am. And they would leave me when they figure out who I really am. So, yes, that's why I used to put on a mask. And I made that mask out of their expectations. So,
you made that mask out of their expectations.
Yeah, so I think I was kind of sensitive and I was kind of good at reading other expectations, even though it wasn't verbally expressed. So, yeah. so that I could tailor my mask to put on during relationship with others. And then it's made me become a people pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's also made me become a really, how to say, a person to find it really hard to be vulnerable, because being vulnerable to me was showing my weakness, so I wasn't appreciated by others, so they would leave me.
Mm.
Yeah. And then um, I always wanted to control situations. Otherwise, I would feel weak, and that's not good.
Right.
And yeah, and I also tended to care too much about other people. I would I was always that helping hands
Mm.
and and ears for other people to share their problems, but in return I never share what's really happened inside of me, especially difficult emotions.
Mm.
Right. And but then I was really sensitive,
Mm.
and yeah, it was so easy for me to bust into anger.
Mm.
Yeah, even with like small things that people said.
Mm.
Yeah, and I could also see myself being too dependent on compliments, and
Mm.
yeah, yeah, I was so in need of external validation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I needed to be liked a lot.
Mm.
Yeah, and it could show up like so. Once I posted a picture on my social network, I kept checking it to see if any new likes or any new comments
Mm.
about that. Yeah, about that thing. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, I also had a tendency to um, ending relationships very early. Yeah, it sounds confusing, but in fact, it was because I feared. I was thinking that if I did not leave them early,
Yeah.
they would leave me first, and that would hurt
Right.
me.
Right. So you should be in control and cut the cord first because it will hurt a lot less.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
How
Right.
about you?
Oh, similar issues because of this abandonment trauma that I had. Um, because my mom never talked to me about difficult emotions. She never really just talked to me. Um, she would say, well, oh yeah, so I would say very, very hurtful things during conflicts with others. And stay, yeah, say very hurtful things or just completely avoid it. Because, instead of going, hey, let's come to the table and discuss how we will resolve this, or how are you feeling what I just did, or, or talking about how what you did made me feel, I would just say things like, I don't need you. Go, you know, or I'll just isolate myself. And I did a lot of that, I think, with my now husband early on in our relationship, and maybe even during early parts of our marriage. And bless the man stuck it through and he is still with me. Like, he was so patient. I mean, that's true love. He's so patient.
Denise.
Yes, he's so patient with me. And yeah, he never actually like took my offer for him to walk out. I'm like, oh, he never did. He's like, no, we're going to work this out. I'm very thankful that I've been blessed with somebody like that, you know. Um, Another issue that I had was like you, I just wanted to be liked, you know? It's like, it's on one hand, I'm like, I don't need you. But on the other hand, it was, I want to be liked, not in a social circle setting, not in school. School is more like, I don't need you. Either you're my friend or you're not. It's fine. But in academics and in my professional life, I wanted to be acknowledged and validated that I was not just good enough, that I was your cream of the crop. I wanted that validation because, and where that came from, this need to want to excel and to be recognized was because, let's go back a little bit, because my mom, the only time she really had an in-depth conversation with me or really cared about how I felt was when we talked about my academics. So I just had this image. I started to think like, oh, yeah, I guess if I show that I excel academically, professionally, that's when people care about me. You know, and it became a very, very perpetuating cycle to the point where I became a perfectionist for my job, for my academics. Anything less than stellar, less than an A, it just sent me down to a spiral.
Ooh.
Like I just started questioning my self-worth. So my self-worth goes out the window. And another thing, it was also control issues, because the trauma from this abandonment that I had was so chaotic for me. I felt like everything was out of my hand to deal with. I felt like, okay, so if I can just grasp onto one thing where I have control, then this is it, you know, and then I never want to lose control. So I became like a control freak. Very annoying, actually, to live with, to have a relationship with somebody like me. I worried a lot, controlling. Just looking at my notes. What else? Again, like you also, I overextended myself to listen to other people's problems. Because I think part of me was hoping that I had the same attention that I gave to my friends. You know, when my friends were sad or angry or whatever, I was there listening to them because I guess a large part of me was hoping, oh, I wish I had the same attention. But I did it so much for these other people, I got tired. Also, I had empathy fatigue. And actually, no one ever checked in with me on how I felt. And, you know, it's because I also wasn't comfortable in telling people how I felt, because by then it was just like I didn't grow up like that. You know, I grew up in an environment where my feelings didn't matter. We didn't talk about my feelings. Another thing was I became really judgmental, I think, because I had this, because I was trying to excel, right, academically and professionally, because I thought that defines a person, not emotions. I began to see that academic and professional qualifications are what makes a person wholesome. So anytime I would befriend somebody or go into a relationship with someone, those are the filters that I use. I'm like, it's actually really snotty and I'm not proud of it. But I'll be honest, I would think, well, what college did you graduate from? What's your degree? You know, like if I get in a relationship with you, like how does this make me look? It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm not proud of it looking back, but that was how it was for me. But having said that, I actually was with somebody that was for 5 years. That was none of that. And the only reason I stayed with this person was because my need to be validated. He gave me a lot of compliments. He filled the emotional void and the validation that I lacked growing up. But he wasn't the right person for me. But I stayed with him so that I could get what I didn't have for 5 years. I mean, it should have ended in day 5, but I stayed with this person for 5 years. And I wasted his time, not just, my own time, but I up to this day, I still feel very bad about wasting his precious time.
He has been going through a lot, huh?
Yeah, I think you and I, fear of abandonment. And it's not just abandonment, it leaves a lot of scars. And it impacts, right? It impacts the way you relate to other people and how you relate to yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Let's take a deep breath on that. Whew.
Yeah.
Like in your 30s for you and in my 40s, that's when I'm really realizing all this, I'm like, wow, I've really gone wrong.
Yeah. That's a long day that we have gone through. Okay. So, since you're having 2 beautiful children now, so would you like to look back and see how did it impact your parenting?
Yeah. I think the major shortcoming for me as a parent was with my eldest, my daughter, because I didn't know how to deal with difficult emotions whenever she was sad or angry, which is, very natural as a child or just as a human being. And it just happens to be more frequent for a child, right? They're very sensitive. I just shut it down. I would actually get angry at her. Like, I'll be like, Nanya, why are you sad? Snap out of it. Come on. Just stop being sad. Let's go. Pick up and go. And looking back, in many ways, though unspoken, this is how my mom treated me. This is how my mom raised me. And unknowingly, that's how I was raising my daughter. And it saddens me because Nanya, I often wonder if that is why Nanya is a more closed off person. She doesn't share her feelings very often. And when she does, she has to really, really trust you. Like you have to really be in her inner circle. She doesn't show any signs of affection except with me. She's not into physical touch because, again, I think when she was sad, when she used to be sad as a little girl, I didn't even, I would hold her, but at the same time, it wasn't like a genuine lingering hold like I do now with my son. It was more of a okay, I'm comforting you. Okay, get over with this. Okay, can you just stop crying? So, because we gotta go. And she probably sensed that, and that's why now I think partly why she's not really into physical touch. I think sometimes she can also be a little dry and sarcastic, like mommy was, because perhaps this energy that I had lingered onto her. She's actually a really sensitive girl, but she doesn't want to talk about it. And what really broke my heart was that she used to say to me, I would say, Nanya, what do you do when you're sad? She's like, I just sleep. I take a nap. I'll sleep on it and I'll tell myself it's okay. And that broke my heart because I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's this wounded little girl like me, like I was, who probably doesn't have the tools on how to process challenging emotions. And she's just telling herself to be strong.
Right.
Which is what I told myself, which is probably what you told yourself.
Hmm. So sleeping is like her coping mechanism. She avoided.
Yeah, she avoided it. Yeah.
Right.
So that's how it's impacted
Yeah.
me as a parent. Not proud of it. And I'm so glad now with all this mindfulness work that we have done that now I'm, turning the corner. She's opening up more now and she's more compassionate. She's more able to, deal with difficult emotions and talk about them.
Yeah. So, so in my case, that fear of abandonment actually manifested as my fear to have a child on my own. Because that fear of abandonment made me to be a really risk-averse person, and raising a human for me back then was a really risky thing. What if I failed as a parent? What if I traumatized my child unintentionally? And I didn't want the same thing happen from that had happened for my mom that would happen for me, and what had happened for me that would happen for my child. So that's why I kept delaying having kids until now. So after many years going through all the impact of fear of abandonment, and then getting to know it, and then starting to heal from it. So this year I felt like, right, I'm ready. Like, I can finally take that risk, and and I think I'm better capable of raising a child, with all myself, and with compassion. So
with compassion,
yeah, that's what has happened to me.
So let's just clarify this. So even after you've gone through some mindfulness, you were awakened like, oh, these were fear of abandonment issues. You were still scared, right? You were still scared of like having a child.
That's right. So that's the thing about healing process. It didn't happen, overnight. It takes time.
It takes time. That's right.
And in fact, it takes a lot of time for me because, that fear of abandonment, it was started like at 5, and then it lasts until I was, I think, in my mid-20s. So nearly 20 years to form something. So it became so concrete. So in order to, to even realize that it was there, it takes a lot of time. Not to mention the time to realize its mechanism, so that we can we can transform it.
That also takes time. It takes time to be awakened. It takes time to heal. Yeah, it's definitely because the wound was not something that happened overnight.
It's never happened overnight. Right. Wow, but thankfully it has happened.
Thankfully it has happened, right? And this brings us to our last question and comment, which is, now that we are awakened, and and we know that we need to heal, and that we're intentionally healing ourselves day to day, how are we breaking the cycle as a parent? Because I am sure in some form or another, our parents were the way they were, like your mom was the way she was, my mom was the way she was. Perhaps their parents were like this in some ways, so they didn't know any better. And that's why they interacted with us the way they did. And because we didn't know any better, therefore we interacted the way we did with others in our lives, including our children. So now we are awakened, like, how will we break the cycle? Like, what are you going to do, Lynn, when your son is born? What are you going to do intentionally to break it?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. So actually, I have been doing it as soon as I knew that I got pregnant.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the focus here is on me. So I know that how much I heal myself is what is the word? How much I heal myself correlate with how much I could heal other people, including my mom, and then it also correlate with how I can raise my child better.
It begins with you. It begins with you.
That's true. It begins with me. So, that's the thing that I intentionally do on a daily basis. So, I commit to myself that I would never abandon myself again.
Oh, I love that. You commit to yourself. You will never abandon yourself again.
Yeah. And I do it by listening to myself, accept whatever happening inside of me. Even though it takes time, it's really challenging. I still remember how hard I even talk out loud that, oh my God, it's so hard to be with my anger, and it's so hard to be with my cockiness. It's so hard to be with my procrastination. Oh my God, it's so hard. But I did not quit. I stay with my commitment to never abandon myself. So I went through the period when I accept that I could not accept everything inside of me at once. Yeah. So I think it's nourished my patience to be with myself. And then I should mention that intention really helps. The intention to be with myself no matter what. So finally I can get to that point. And then I can be present for whatever inside of me, easy or difficult.
Yep.
Yeah. And I felt like my acceptance also increase over time. Gradually, slowly, but it does increase. And then I also feel like I can awake like a mother inside of me, a mother to me, a mother to me myself, a mother that can hold me whenever I feel vulnerable. Whenever I feel like I want someone to really sit there and patiently listen to me, and to really hold my hand, smile with me, and then tell me that I'm here. I'm here with you through thick and thin. So we're together. Yeah. So it warmed my heart. It warmed my heart, and somehow I felt like it's really translate in the way that I communicate with my baby son, my baby boy. Yeah. So it's the energy that I feel towards him.
Yeah, it's the effect, because how you feel towards yourself, that energy illuminates to your child.
Yeah. Right. So I talk to him on a daily basis, and then like two friends, and like I don't know how to say this, but I feel like a really close relationship. And loving relationship. And I'm so thankful that it's also influenced my mom. So yeah, so it feels like When I heal, as like when I heal my fear of abandonment, so I feel more comfortable being vulnerable. And
Mm,
yeah,
mm, mm,
so you know what? Before I never talked to her about things that made me sad or disappointed.
mm, mm-hmm.
I always wanted to show up being so strong and confident and fun
Right, right, right.
in front of her. But lately, I started to feel comfortable letting her know about
Oh,
yeah, problems
mm,
happening to me and at work or you know, in the relationship with my husband. And
mm.
yeah, and I just let her know for the sake of letting her know. I didn't expect that she would soothe me. So that's why the conversation about difficult topics got really light.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah, got really light, and it's just like a random chat between friends.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
and I started seeing my mom opening up herself,
Mm, 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 mm.
and it's like she got relaxed.
Whew, yeah,
Yeah, she got relaxed, and finally, she
beautiful.
yeah she can also talk about what bothers her, what made her feel difficult.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's when I feel like we became like a true friends.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, we of course we went through a lot, and um, I always so um, recently I felt like
Mm.
I could be her friend who back her up and
Yeah,
give her a pat on her back whenever she got anxious or stressed. I would say, "I'm here.
mm,
No, I'm here."
right. Which is probably what she needed when she was alone raising you. But
That's
because
right.
she, right, because she didn't have the support, therefore she's like, well, then I need to be strong. But being strong for so long makes you tired. And when you're tired, you're resentful,
That's
right?
right.
You're
That's the thing.
angry and you will take it out on that person that is closest to you physically
Yeah,
and relationally, right? And that was you. That was
that's
you.
that's right. Yeah.
Right.
So I usually tell her and also tell my dad that what family, this situation is difficult, but we will figure it out. We'll find solution together. So no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so thankful that you know, our relationships are now much better, and it's better in a really authentic way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's beautiful.
that's beautiful. Yeah, I'm so grateful for that.
No, that's really beautiful. You worked on yourself first. You
Mm,
weren't, trying to force them with this mindfulness, whatever. You're like, no, I'm just gonna, I read this quote somewhere on frequent basis, which is, it is, it wasn't your fault what happened to you,
mm,
you know? Um, but now you need to take control over what happened to you by healing yourself.
true.
That's your responsibility. So it wasn't your responsibility what happened to you, but it's your responsibility to heal yourself and just work on yourself. And I think when you heal yourself, you become a lighter and a light. And
Mm,
when you are a light, the people you interact with, without trying, a light is shined upon them,
mm,
and they find their way back as well.
yeah. So I think it's really helps to break the cycle.
Yeah, to work on yourself first. I agree. And I echo everything that you said on how you worked on yourself. That's what I've been doing as well. And I see that energy being absorbed and now being reflected back in my own children, especially my Nanya now. So I'm, yeah. Yeah, that was a long conversation. It was a very
It's yeah.
vulnerable conversation. That was a lot to unpack. Um, but thank you everyone for staying tuned for this long if you have already. And just know that, if any of these things that we have said resonate with you, you're not alone. There's really nothing to be ashamed of. I think a lot of us have felt abandoned in one way or another. I think, but it is our responsibility, though, to acknowledge them and to heal ourselves from them so that we can live a life to its fullest, with just love and gratitude. Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining. And oh yeah, one more thing. If any of this really resonated with you, the fear of abandonment or the consequences that it has caused in your life, Lynn and I will be happy to have a self-compassion circle for you, where we just, get together non-judgmentally and just unpack these issues, just to share and to talk. And in that process, hope that it makes you feel lighter in heart. Anything else to add, Lynn?
No, I'm so glad. Actually, this session it's like a healing session for both of us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel so grateful now, and I do hope that we can how to say share this energy and the gratitude that we have to many other mommies.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and hope to see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.